Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 86. This week we respect and honour those who lost their lives in conflicts throughout time and around the globe with a 2-minute silence. Before going on then to review the Series 8 finale and take a look at the one and only Jamie McCrimmon as played by Hamish Wilson? This week, as last year at this time, I'm inviting you to join me in a 2-minute silence as we remember all those who've lost their lives in conflicts around the world and throughout time. They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn them. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Victoria,
What?
do you see how those lasses were dressed?
Yes, I did. And trust you to think of something like that.
Well, couldn't help thinking about it.
Well, I think it's disgusting, wearing that kind of thing.
Oh, so it is. So it is. You don't see yourself dressed like that, then?
Jamie!
Oh, I'm sorry. It was just an idea.
Of course, Hamish Wilson only played Jamie fleetingly, but more about that later in the show. Best known for playing Jamie is Fraser Hines, who was born on the 22nd of September 1944 in Horsforth in Yorkshire. Hines played Jamie McCrimmon from the Highlanders to the War Games, and again in the 20th anniversary special The Five Doctors, and the season 22 story The Two Doctors. Outside of Doctor Who, he's perhaps best known for playing Joe Sugden in Emmerdale Farm, as it was then known. At the age of 8, after studying acting at the Corona Academy, he made his acting debut. He was 13 when he appeared in Charlie Chaplin's A King in New York in 1957. By the age of 15, he'd appeared in 6 films. In 1960, he appeared in the 8-part serial The Young Jacobites. His television roles included Jan in The Silver Sword, Tim Birch in Emergency Ward, and Roger Wayne in Coronation Street. In Doctor Who, Fraser Hines played the part of Jamie McCrimmon, a companion of the Second Doctor from 1966 to 1969, and then reappeared in The Five Doctors in 1983 and The Two Doctors in 1985. The original script treatment for the 3 Doctors had called for Jamie to return in that story as well, but scheduling conflicts with Hines's work on Emmerdale Farm, as well as objections by John Pertwee as to what he perceived were too many characters in the story, prevented that from happening. After his 3-year stint as Jamie in Doctor Who, Fraser Hines resumed the life of a jobbing actor, until in 1972 he was cast in the soap opera Emmerdale Farm as Joe Sugden, a role he played until 1994. Between making episodes of Emmerdale, as it was renamed in the 1980s, he's continued his career in the theatre and made occasional appearances on other TV shows. He's also a noted amateur jockey. Recently, Hines has returned to the Doctor Who franchise through the Big Finish Productions audio line, performing Jamie for the Companion Chronicles and the Lost Stories series. In this capacity, he also made use of his impersonation of Patrick Troughton, and in 2013 was formally cast as the Second Doctor for an extended cameo in the anniversary story The Light at the End. In 2010, Hines took a part in a series of audio dramas pairing Jamie with the Sixth Doctor. Hines has published 2 autobiographies, Films, Farms and Fillies in 1996 and Hindsight in 2009. In 2010 he revealed that he'd been battling bowel cancer for 11 years, but had chosen not to publicise the fact until given the medical all clear. In March 2013, Fraser appeared on a Doctor Who edition of the TV game show Pointless Celebrities and partnered up with Louise Jameson.
Me foreign? You're the one that's foreign, I'm Scottish.
James Robert Jamie McCrimmon is a piper of the Clan MacLaren, who lived in the 18th century in Scotland. He was a companion of the Second Doctor and a regular in the programme from 1966 to 1969. The spelling of his surname varies from one script to another and is alternately rendered as McCrimmon and McCrimmond. Jamie was the son of Donald McCrimmon, a piper like his father and his father's father. Jamie first appears in The Highlanders, encountering the Doctor, Ben and Polly in the aftermath of the Battle of Culloden in 1746. At the end of the story, Polly suggests that the Doctor take Jamie along with them. Jamie then continues to travel with the Doctor even after Ben and Polly have left the TARDIS at the end of The Faceless Ones. He appears in all but the very first Second Doctor serial, The Power of the Daleks, and in more episodes than any other companion, although Tevan Javanka served with the Doctor for the longest continuous period in terms of years on the series. Jamie shares a lively, bantering relationship with the Doctor, and during his time in the series he sees the arrival and departure of first Victoria Waterfield and finally Zoe Harriet. Jamie, being a product of his time, is always solicitous and gentlemanly towards the women who travel with him. He doesn't have the background to always understand the situations his adventures with the Doctor take him to, but is quick enough to translate high technology and concepts into equivalents he can understand and deal with. His relationship with the Doctor isn't always smooth, and in The Evil of the Daleks, Jamie comes close to leaving the Doctor, whom he feels has been manipulating him and Victoria to discover the human factor for the Daleks without thinking about the consequences. His battle cry in Scottish Gaelic translates to "the Boar's Rock," which is similar to the motto of the MacLaren clan of Scotland. Together with the Doctor, Jamie encounters Cybermen, Daleks, the Yeti in the underground, the Ice Warriors and many other dangers. Jamie is particularly fond and protective of Victoria, due in part to her being an elegant Victorian lady. For example, in the Ice Warriors, Jamie's first priority is to rescue Victoria, despite being injured to the point where he can't walk. Jamie is heartbroken when Victoria decides to stay with the Harris family at the end of Fury from the Deep, to the point of even briefly being angry with the Doctor for allowing her to leave. He initially finds Zoe's more modern attitudes and bossy nature irritating, but eventually adopts the same protective attitude, disguised by the same bantering he engages in with the Doctor. Often Jamie's simple common sense beats Zoe's strict logic, such as in The Dominators, where Jamie realises that the erupting volcano is going to threaten, while the Doctor and Zoe are still congratulating themselves. During the filming of The Mind Robber, Fraser Hines contracted chickenpox and was replaced for part of the serial by Hamish Wilson. This was written in as part of the story, when Jamie is turned into a cardboard cutout and has his face removed by the master of the land of fiction. The Doctor's first attempt to reconstruct his face is unsuccessful. Eventually Jamie's face is restored when Hines recovered. Jamie's travels with the Doctor come to an end on the battlefields of the War Games, when the Time Lords finally put the Doctor on trial for interfering with the universe. For his offences, the Doctor is forced to regenerate and exiled to Earth. Jamie and Zoe are returned to their own time, their memories of the Doctor wiped, save for their first encounters with him. When last seen, Jamie is fighting an English redcoat back on the fields of Scotland. Fraser Hines has returned to Doctor Who as an illusory image of Jamie in the 20th anniversary special The Five Doctors. He also reprised the role in the 1985 serial The Two Doctors alongside Patrick Troughton and Colin Baker as the 2nd and 6th Doctors respectively. He's mentioned by the 5th Doctor in Castrovalva when he calls Adric and Jamie, by the 6th Doctor in The Two Doctors and Attack of the Cybermen, and by the 7th Doctor in The Curse of Fenric. A vision of Jamie is seen along with every other companion aside from Leela on the scanner screen in Resurrection of the Daleks. In Tooth and Claw, the Doctor uses the alias Dr. James McCrimmon, together with a Scottish accent, which in reality of course was David Tennant's own accent. Jamie's ultimate fate remains unclear within the generally accepted canonicity of various Doctor Who spin-off media. In the comic strip story The World Shapers with the 6th Doctor, published in Doctor Who magazine, an elderly Jamie remembers his time with the Doctor, explaining that the Doctor had taught him some tricks to ensure the Time Lords wouldn't really wipe his memories. In this story, written by Grant Morrison, Jamie sacrifices himself to stop the World Shaper machine of the title, which was evolving aliens into Cybermen. Jamie's death outside the television series was controversial due to his status as a prominent companion. In the Virgin New Adventures novel Time, Weir and Revelation, writer Paul Cornell omitted Jamie from the group of deceased companions encountered by the 7th Doctor. In Planet of the Dead, a race of shape-shifters known as the Ganzalem impersonate the Doctor's dead companions, including Jamie. Big Finish Productions have reunited Jamie with the 6th Doctor in a series of audio adventure plays, starting with City of Spires. However, in the final story, Legend of the Cybermen, it's revealed that he is simply a fictional construct within the realm stream seen in The Mind Robber, created by an older Zoe and based on her memories of the real Jamie. The Doctor Who Adventures comic strip gives the 10th Doctor a companion from 21st century Scotland named Heather McCrimmon, who is by all accounts a descendant of Jamie.
Doctor, what are you looking at?
The clouds. Still there.
Oh, dear Lord!
The Cybermen out there on the fuselage.
In 24 hours, the human race, as you know it, will cease to exist.
Doctor!
It's happening everywhere. All over the world right now.
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty.
A box!
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
First to feedback on the season finale was Jeff Waddell. He said, "It was better than what I thought it would be. Predictable, but I thought the reveal of that particular Cyberman was in very poor taste. Take the last 3 episodes out and this would have been my favourite series of New Who, but it has now left a bad taste. I thought the brig going in Matt's era was handled perfectly. I'm sick to death now of Cybermen too. who for no apparent reason other than they have strong emotions, like her from EastEnders, Craig and Danny, being able to override their programming. Cybermen don't have emotions. That's the whole point of the Cybermen. Barry Ricks said, "Good episode and two-parter. Spoilt by the Master and Missy business. What next, Mr. Moffat? A lady doctor?" Next up was Ian McLean. "Only two things annoyed me. The death of Osgood and the death of Missy. As much as I hated the CGI flying Cybermen, I don't really see a reason why they shouldn't be able to fly. If the Daleks can fly, why shouldn't they?" Next up was Andrew Marmot. He said, "A good resolution to the story and put most of the bits of part 1 in perspective. I've now watched parts 1 and 2 back to back, and while it removes some of the shock factor from part 1, it does all make sense. I liked most of what I saw. Firstly, the Doctor skydiving made me smile and laugh. The old man has still got it, and having the TARDIS burst through the clouds was very Batman. It only needed to be in front of a full moon to complete that image. Secondly, the sparky exchanges between the Doctor and Missy. Very good and very sharp. Thirdly, the Briggs picture in the plane's boardroom. I liked that quite a bit, and it reminded me of the picture on the wall in M's office of the original M from the more recent James Bond films. Fourthly, the music. Nothing's been said much about Murray Gold's score for this season, and yes, while it's more understated than the 11th Doctor's Madman in a Box theme, it is once again very good and matches the 12th Doctor very well. I look forward to the release of the Season 8 costly disc. But there were some things that bugged me a little. Firstly, that Cyberman. I know, I'd normally be the one defending that on here, but I would have preferred it not to have been that character. I suppose the salute was a nice touch, though. Both RTD and the Moff keep killing off major villains. How many times has the Master been killed since the series came back now? 3? Can't he or she just escape at least once? At least the Moff doesn't wipe out all the Daleks once a season like RTD used to. So all in all, a fantastic season with some challenging stories and a teaser hinting at a Christmas special that could be anything. Next to feedback was Ryan Lynn, who said, "I don't hate it, but I still dislike Missy being the Master. The actress performed very well as the villain. The killing of a particular member of UNIT got my wife to quit watching and tell me that the BBC needs to take the pen away from Moffat. I'm sick of the Doctor not being the star of his own show. I didn't hate Clara at the start of this year's series, but by golly I hate her now. Still didn't care about Danny. Hate that the humans have grown so dependent on the Doctor that when things get bad they just make him a dictator essentially. I did love Peter Capaldi's performance, however. It was the best he's given, and I enjoyed the nod to the Brigadier." And finally in this week's feedback was Brett Allen Jones. "Maybe I need to watch several more times, but am I the only person who was disappointed in this finale as well as the season in general? Yes, there are good bits, and I really did like Peter Capaldi as the Doctor, but so much seemed off. Apparently, Danny was introduced and his relationship with Clara rushed for 3 reasons. 1, to annoy the Doctor because he was a soldier, which is really odd considering the last 50 years. 2, to antagonise the Doctor every time they saw each other. And 3, to sacrifice himself and give Clara a reason to fall apart even more in, at least in my opinion, a poor attempt at a final story arc. Clara's personality seemed to change completely at this go around, and that was both confusing and annoying. And what was up with all the lying between Clara and the Doctor? The unnecessary unit member's death was a letdown. The Master reveal was a letdown. I'd have liked it better if it had been the Rani, Romana, or even Susan. The only part that was remotely good was the salute to the Cyberman at the end. After all, the dead were rising." As always, thanks for your thoughts. And as seems to have been the case often this season, opinion is very much divided, but as I've often said, that's part of the fun of being a fan. Speaking of which, Theta's thought. What just happened? So messaged a friend of mine on Facebook almost immediately after Death in Heaven had finished, and I have to admit I was wondering the same thing. It had all gone by in a bit of a blur, and not necessarily because I'd enjoyed it, because I wasn't sure that I had. I've since listened to 2 other podcast reviews, the latter of which put their finger on exactly where this story went wrong for me. Since the show's revival, there's been much more character-driven stories rather than plot-driven. Now I know that the characters are important, and some backstory is also important, but ultimately you can have too much of this to the detriment of the plot. And for me, this is where Death in Heaven falls down. At face value, Death in Heaven is all about the development of the Doctor's character rather than the saving of the Earth or the universe. Now call me old-fashioned, but for me, Doctor Who is all about the Doctor turning up, finding the threat, saving the day and moving on. Yes, a story arc is always nice, and some work, like The Key to Time or Bad Wolf and Torchwood, and some don't, such as The Trial of a Time Lord, the Doctor's death in Season 6 and Missy. But ultimately the show is driven by the plot and not necessarily the development of the characters, and after more than 50 years, even less so by the development of the Doctor's character. Yes, I know balance is good, and there has to be some development of the peripheral characters, but when it's to the detriment of the plot, such as it was in Death in Heaven, then the pendulum has swung too far. But what about the episode itself? Well, I'll openly admit that I was completely taken in by the pre-credit sequence with Clara claiming to be the Doctor. I had my head in my hands and shouting at the television, "Oh no, please, no!" And then the credits rolled. So taken was I that I missed the fact that Jenna Coleman was even given top billing, but I didn't miss her eyes in the opening titles. You'll never know how relieved I was to find out that all that was just a ruse. I love the street scene that reintroduced Unit, and the opening exchanges between Kate Lethbridge-Stewart and the Doctor are brilliant. Sadly though, this scene, as others later, is let down by poor CGI when the Cybermen take to the air. What follows is all quite interesting, but sadly not that clever. The Doctor made President of Earth? Moffat's been banging the viewer over the head with this Doctor doesn't like soldiers theme throughout the series, so it was never going to take a genius to work out that the Doctor would be incredibly uncomfortable being made Commander-in-Chief of all Earth's military forces. Missy's explanation of her escape from Gallifrey still completely avoids any explanation of the Master becoming female. The destruction of Osgood serves no useful purpose in taking the story forward, and it's a real shame, as I'd love to have seen her take to the TARDIS as the Season 9 companion. And then we have the saving of Kate Lethbridge-Stewart's life by her father, the Cyber Brigadier. Now, I'm sorry, but for me this really was quite offensive. Moffat's already rubbished two well-loved Doctor Who aliens since he took over at the helm, those being the Silurians and the Sontarans, but to do the same to the Brigadier is truly awful. Not only does it blight the memory of the Brigadier in my mind, but it also undermines the Cyberman's primary strength, their lack of emotions. Here once again we have the cyber conditioning being overcome simply by someone's strong emotions. I didn't like it when Yvonne Hartman did it in Doomsday, and I like it even less when we have the Brigadier doing it now. It just makes no sense to the story, and it's a poor tribute to the character of the Brigadier. The final scene between the Doctor and Clara had all the potential to be incredibly emotional in the same way as the closing scene of Doomsday between the Doctor and Rose, but sadly once again for me Moffat's script was a poor one. Despite all they've gone through together, the Doctor and Clara are still unable to be honest with each other? Seriously? No, not for me. This scene just didn't work and didn't fit terribly well at the end of this story. So overall, Death in Heaven was something of a disappointment for me. There was huge potential for it to have been something really special, but it fell at the first hurdle. Too much character development and not enough plot.
Oh, goodbye, my dear chap. I must say I've had the time of my lives.
And that's all for this week. Season 8 is done and dusted, and we now start the 6.5-week wait for the Christmas special. Next week I'll be taking a look back at Peter Capaldi's debut season and sharing my highs and lows. And 1 year on from Doctor Who's 50th anniversary, I'll be reviewing Big Finish's 50th anniversary special, right at the end.
You know, old girl, sometimes I think you're probably the finest ship ever to have sailed the vortex.
Oh, my word.
So now we know.
Now we know for sure.
But why are they here, Why are all the doctors here?
Hello, my dear.
Doctor?
What is it, Lissa?
Here. Look.
In the doll's house, what?
Look through the window.
Come on, Ace! Run! Back to the TARDIS!
What's happened? Where am I?
You're in the TARDIS. How do you do?
I beg your pardon?
Oh, no need to. I'm the Doctor, and this is...
I am Leela. All of them? They were you?
Here we go, 3 minutes 5.
1703.
The 23rd of November, 1963.
The 23rd of November, 1963.
59A Barnesfield Crescent, Totton, Hampshire.
Crescent, Totton, Hampshire, England. Earth.
Stop fiddling about and get on with it.
Charlie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We'll come back for you. You hear me, Charlie?
Doctor, no!
Appears to be some kind of warning.
All this cloak and dagger business? You're clearly up to no good.
By all means, please do come out to play, Doctor. I'm waiting for you.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.